Welcome back to the boat cheat. Today we're going to look at handling leaving a berth in a boat that's pretty much uncontrollable going astern. If you like this video or find it helpful, please remember, click like, click subscribe, click the bell icon to be reminded. All of those things really help us grow the channel. Viewer Peter Ben has a particularly tricky boat to get out of his berth. He has an Albin Vega 27, a cut-off long keel boat with a keel-mounted rudder and, unusually, the prop above and behind the rudder, so it has no prop wash. It also has no gearbox, instead having a variable pitch prop which can give forward and reverse thrust while turning in the same direction. So prop walk always moves the stern to port regardless of whether you're going ahead or astern. We'll have a look at this a bit more in a minute to get our heads around it. But the effect of all this is that Peter's boat won't reverse and turn to bring the bow to port to head out of his marina, particularly if there's any breeze. Peter asked if there's any cheats that might help him. The first thing to note is that many Albin Vegas have been re-engined, as they were all built in the 60s and 70s, so you may have seen one without its esoteric drive system. Looking at the cross-section of this boat, I can really see why Peter says it's a handful going astern. Although cut away a little at the front, the keel is still a long, stabilising influence which will resist turning, which is great in heavy weather, but not so great in the marina. This little boat's been used to do some amazing trips, including a circumnavigation of the Americas, non-stop and single-handed, so it's clearly a very able little boat. So it'd be really good if we could find a way to get past this little handling quirk. As I mentioned in several other videos, all boats are a collection of compromises, and this boat has been designed to be relatively quick and relatively good at handling foul weather, so I think a little bit of a handling problem in the marina is a small price to pay. The arrangement for this sort of boat is commonly to have the propeller in a cutout at the leading edge of the rudder. But for this pocket-sized, relatively lightweight boat, they opted to put the prop on a very short shaft from an engine mounted under the front end of the cockpit, and this results in it being above and behind the rudder, so there is absolutely no prop wash. Prop wash and prop walk often get confused, so let's just recap to make sure we're all on the same page. A deflected rudder creates a force which is a function of the velocity of the water passing over it, which is why steering is more effective at high boat speed than low boat speed. Only the lateral element of the rudder force is of interest for our discussion, and so the other component, drag, has been omitted for simplicity. The velocity of the water passing over a rudder is dramatically increased if it's downstream of the propeller. When driving a boat forwards, the accelerated outflow from the propeller passes over the rudder, producing a much larger force. This is prop wash. If we could look at the prop from behind, we'd see that the top half of the propeller is in more disturbed, less laminar flow water, because water nearer the surface has less pressure acting on it than deeper water, so it can move upwards, creating the prop wake we can clearly see over the transom. This is of course a gross simplification, but this, along with the bubbles entrained in the turbulent water, reduce the resistance of the water acting on the upper half of the prop. The bottom half therefore bites the water more firmly, creating more force. The longitudinal component of this larger force is additional prop thrust, while the lateral component is prop walk. In summary, prop wash is the interaction of the propeller with the rudder, while prop walk is the interaction of the propeller with the water. Prop wash increases the effectiveness of the rudder, so its effect depends on the position of the rudder, while prop walk is dependent on prop rotation. So going astern usually reverses the effect of prop walk. However, on Peter's boat, only the propeller pitch changes, and so although the prop thrust changes direction, prop walk stays the same. The effect of this is that the stern of the boat is always being nudged to port, which has the effect of nudging the bow to starboard, since the keel acts like the hinge of a seesaw. Add a breeze from the port side, pushing the bow across, and it can be impossible to bring the bow around to port to go down the fairway. So what cheats might help? I'll start by saying that none of the following are perfect, and none will sort all conditions and situations, but between them you might find a solution that works for you on a given day. My first thought was that you could work with what the boat wants to do. So if the wind is blowing the bow to starboard and the prop walk is pushing the bow to starboard, then leave the berth turning the bow to starboard, which would require backing out down the fairway until sufficient room can be found to turn around, maybe with 3 or so knots of way to get the rudder working and to give the inertia to get the bow to come round when you need it to. The problem with this is that this particular boat is known for being very difficult to handle astern, so this might not be suitable if the berth is a long way from the end of the fairway or where space is limited at the end of that fairway, and manoeuvring there will also be difficult. Another option is to use warps and or manpower. This is also potentially fraught with problems if single-handed, and even with really dexterous crew could still be risky, but there are situations in which it might be suitable. I've seen plenty of sailors of similar sized boats pushing their boats out of the cove in Weymouth when conditions require it, and one solution might be to make sure the bow is well fended, then secure the tiller to hard over to port with a slip knot or velcro so it can be immediately released, and then, with the dock lines removed, briskly push the boat along the finger, holding it at the shrouds and stepping onto the boat when you get near the end of the finger. Once back in the cockpit, ease the tiller, engage drive as required, reversing the helm once you stop moving aft. The problem with this cheat is that if you trip or fall, your boat will leave the pontoon unmanned. That's not ideal. So it gets used a lot though, this idea, so it's clearly a solution, if not an ideal one. The risk of tripping can be reduced by standing on the end of the finger and pulling the boat towards you, stepping on when the forward shroud goes past you, so that you've got a nice high handhold to help you get aboard. But for me, this is not a solution that I would use from choice. A small, quick and cheap modification might offer a workable solution which avoids the risk of unmanned boating. If you attach a swivel block like this Barton block, about £14 or $17, to the D-ring at the base of the pulpit using a soft shackle, you can then run a soft braided line from a cleat on the end of the finger with the loop just over the horn of the deck cleat nearest the end of the finger, outside everything, through the block and back to the cockpit. With the engine idling and neutral pitch set for minimum prop walk, position the tiller for the turn. Check for traffic, remove the last dock line, and then haul hard and fast on the rig line. Accelerating out of the berth, the bow will be held close to the dock by the line being taut, and as the bow passes the end of the finger, the loop will slip off the end of the dock cleat and hang from the bow. I explained how this works in my video, Getting Off the Dock Against the Wind with a Single Engine, and this is linked in the description below. Drop the line and focus on tiller and engine to get yourself pointing where you need to go, using the engine as late as possible to avoid prop walk fighting against the rudder. So wait until the boat's almost stationary or the rate of turn is diminishing anyway before engaging forward pitch. Reverse the helm only after you stop moving aft. This modification will cost £20 to £25 or about $28 to $40 if you buy a pre-made soft shackle to attach the block. This is a great idea because it's then easy to remove it and switch it to the opposite side when needed. This cheat removes the main problem, prop walk, but it doesn't make the boat turn any more easily against its long keel, so you'll need to haul on the line positively to make this work. Often forgotten with regards to handling under power is the effect of sail. Some long keel boats can be assisted to turning by judicious use of sail in hoisting the main and leaving the sheet loose until the boat is clear of obstructions to leeward, and then sheeting in or simply pulling the boom to windward can shift the centre of pressure of the air aft and help bring the bow to windward. However, the Albin Vegas cross section with a cutaway of the forward keel and the mast well forward make it appear that this will be of marginal, if any, benefit. You could, however, hank a storm jib onto the backstay. Leave it flapping in the breeze or hold it furled with a couple of reef ties, and then when halfway out of the berth, sheet or hold it into the wind to push the stern to starboard and get the head to come to port. This could be combined with the slingshot line to cope with a moderate breeze, I suspect. With a wind from the starboard side, the headsail could be very effective to bring the bow to port. It can be partly unfurled and set before you leave the dock if conditions make it helpful. Let's have a look at how this might work. The tiller is set to assist the turn to starboard going aft. The engine is idling with neutral pitch set or in neutral for a standard gearbox. The storm jib is attached and either flapping free or held reefed by the backstay. The last dock line has just been removed, and so you haul away on the slingshot. As soon as the loop slips off the dock cleat, drop it and hold the storm jib to the wind to help keep you moving aft and help the turn. Once the bow is sufficiently to port, or when the rate of turn diminishes too much, engage forward drive and reverse the helm once aft movement stops. The storm jib can be eased and gathered in when space and time permit. If you have a long keel boat and have better tricks for this problem, please do share them in the comments below. As I said earlier, please do hit subscribe and like and that bell icon. It really helps us grow the channel.